David Hill, I'm musical director of the Bach Choir, and we're here to discuss the Blitz Requiem, which is going to be premiered in St Paul's Cathedral on September the 26th. And to my right is the composer, David Goode, and my left, Francis Warner, the librettist. And we're going to discuss what it is that inspired you, Francis, firstly, to write these words for this marvellous work.
I didn't want to do it at all. After the war was over, I and my brothers decided we would look forward, not back, and forget the whole business. We'd had 6 years of it, and we'd twice been bombed out. However, the Cambridge University asked me to give a lecture to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Blitz. I said no, and they said yes, you must, because you're the last generation. And so I did give it at Madingley Hall, and it turned out to be quite a large lecture, and from that, of course, grew the poetry, which is a distillation of those experiences in the Blitz.
And converting those words into music, David, how has that been as an experience for you?
It's sort of a particular challenge to try and match the occasion in a way. It's a wonderful text, it's very vivid and has afforded lots of inspiration for the kind of things to write. I think a new challenge was structuring something on this scale, because it's longer than anything I've written so far. We've collaborated on a number of projects very happily, but something in several movements, some of which are really quite long, has been a very interesting challenge, and I've enjoyed that very much.
What kind of atmosphere were you trying to create when you started, bearing in mind that we're doing it in this iconic building in London which survived it? What was going through your mind about the sort of sound you wanted to create in this with these words that Francis has written?
Obviously something atmospheric and hopefully moving. In some ways elegiac, I suppose, but I think more than that, it's a rather grand word, but something slightly transcendent, I suppose. So there are some quite dark passages, of course, and quite stormy, almost, well, indeed violent sort of passages. But I hope the impression will be actually to point to something beyond a piece and sort of, as I say, transcendence by the end of the piece. That something is resolved and looks forward.
What sort of mood do you feel, Francis, that you were also trying to create in the words that you wrote? Because you give a sort of traditional framework, don't you, for a requiem to the title.
There is, yes.
But beyond that, that's it. It's the rest is you, isn't it?
It is. I'm in a special position because I was not a combatant. I was a recipient. So that gives you a very different view from, say, Ben's one with Wilfred Owen, where Wilfred Owen was actually killing people at the same time. We were only on the business end of it. And therefore it shifts. And also I was a young person, very young. We were all young. So the angle from which I'm coming at it is unlike any other requiem. And David has been in from the beginning. When the lecture was given, he also gave a recital on music from the Blitz. So we've grown together in this, as it were, each influencing the other, even if it's only subliminally.
What's interesting to me as a person who's trying to put it together at the moment, and I'm really thrilled to be doing this, is the way in which, David, you have allowed all these different elements, the orchestra, the very large orchestra, I think, isn't it, the choir and the soloists, to take equal, if you like, standing within the piece. In other words, that everyone has an equal voice, which I think is a really interesting concept. Some requiems is very choral with very little solo. Fauré and Du Rufflet are two examples of that. But Verdi, of course, operatic. But did you have that in your mind, of sort of equality of the sharing of the artistic angles?
I suppose I pitched the piece somewhere between the Fauré Du Rufflet, these quite intimate, rather contemplative pieces, and there's some of that about it, and a very grand, as you say, operatic piece like the Verdi with full orchestra. So there are arias within the piece of greater or smaller length. There are some reasonably extended choral passages, some where the choir has refrains, and this, I hope, comes out of Francis's words. The structure of the text, sometimes it's a sort of slightly hypnotic repetition of a line, sometimes it's a more dynamic through composed sort of piece.
And this is for a large orchestra. I mean, I know you're still in the midst of completing that, but at the moment it's a full symphony.
It's full symphony orchestra, yeah,
and including all the brass and tubas and percussion.
That's right.
And
yes.
Siren sounds.
Well, yes, and the very first sort of stimulus, I suppose, Francis played me the siren, which is a sound instantly recognisable, moving up in thirds, this sort of wail that goes up to the top and down again. And I thought, well, that's got to be there somehow, but do you just sort of play a recording of it and then go on with the piece? What I've actually done is use that as actually a starting point, a kind of building block for almost, I won't say every bar in the piece, but a lot of the material is piling up of the interval of a third in different permutations. So when you're faced with a huge piece, you sort of think, well, where do I start? What notes do I... You have to write a note on the page and go from there. And that's actually been quite a fruitful sort of way to build it up. So I hope that's not a kind of gimmick. We will hear it on the instruments at the beginning and at the end of the piece. But it in some way weaves itself into the fabric of the piece as well.
One of the wonderful things about this event, it seems to me, is the chance to be able, obviously, to hear something that is new, but also to do it in this particular building. And I think this is going to have an extraordinary effect on people, not least the words and coming through the music. But I'm also reminded of someone like Housman, who was never very kind about musicians trying to set his words. Now, this has nothing to do with David, who set some wonderful music, I know, to your words. But do you think there's sometimes a little bit of a difficulty about the relationship between the words and the music that can end up being written?
It can happen. W.A. Jordan, who used to take a class with me in Oxford, said they only hear one word in three anyway. I have completely the opposite view. David understands my work well and has written over 6 anthems and gets it right every time. I couldn't be more pleased. His music is as beautiful as Release from Pain, and this is what we want for the Requiem.
Well, I think that's a wonderful testimony to your work, and also I hope to this concert that we're going to give, and also Classic FM are going to be broadcasting. It's all very exciting. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you for conducting it.
Yes, yeah.